lost all my hair to an autoimmune condition at 17 years old. So it was a good kind of kick in the butt to just start reflecting on like, why did this happen? And then what could I do to improve it?
At 17, he was a rising athlete, but one night after practice, his body betrayed him. His breathing was labored, his body breaking down in ways he couldn't understand. Then in the shower, clumps of hair falling out in his hands. Weeks later, he was completely bald. Doctors had no answers.
I actually played pro soccer in my early 20s when I graduated. 25, I came back to Toronto, and then I went back to school to study holistic nutrition. That was the moment that changed my life. Literally in 2 months, I regrew all my hair. The biggest mistake people make is they're trying to be liked by everyone, and it's the single biggest reason they fail in business because they don't say what they want to say because they're afraid of stepping on toes.
For years, he searched every possible treatment. He was told to manage his symptoms, not to find the cause. But he refused to accept that fate. Instead, he did what no one else could. He cracked the code.
Advertising is almost like using Facebook or Instagram as your personal blog. It's just people see your stuff more often. Like you're paying for visibility. What you don't get necessarily are the conversion. But the problem with organic is that it takes forever. Not everyone sees your stuff, and every platform is pay to play. If you can learn that game, it's one of the fastest ways to grow a business.
Today, he's a New York Times best-selling author, a trusted health expert, and a man on a mission to help 100 million people by 2040 reclaim their health. This is the raw, unfiltered truth of Yuri Elkaim.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. HubSpot not only supports this show, but they support entrepreneurs. That's why I'm such a huge fan of HubSpot. And I'm very grateful for HubSpot for supporting the show because they help entrepreneurs. And as a fellow entrepreneur, I know it takes a lot to grow your business, a lot of audience attracting, a lot of sales, a lot of marketing, a lot of lead scoring, a lot of channel management, a lot of content, a lot of long days, late nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of wishing there was an easier way, but there is. With Breeze, this is HubSpot's new collection of AI tools. It's easier than ever for marketers, for entrepreneurs to attract audiences, to increase leads, to score customers, and to close deals fast, which means pretty soon your company will have a lot to celebrate. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more. Yuri, I'm excited to do this today. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think that if we look at your career and you went on this journey from pro athlete to health expert to business coach, talk to me about a major inflection point. There's obviously been many, but something that really stands out in your mind that was a wake-up call, pushed you down the path that you're on today.
Yeah, I'd say the first, probably the most notable one is the fact that I lost all my hair to an autoimmune condition at 17 years old. So my dad's Moroccan. I had really bushy eyebrows, longer brown hair all over my body, Sasquatch level. It was actually a nice thing to lose all my hair, even though a lot of people said it must have been really hard. For a moment it was, but the reality is that I didn't know why it happened. So that's really the best thing that's probably ever happened for me because it was a good kind of kick in the butt to just start reflecting on like, why did this happen? And then what could I do to improve it? And so that really led me down that path of going, down the rabbit hole of health and going to school for kinesiology and health sciences and then nutrition. And that really was the starting point for this journey. Like I wouldn't really be where I am now, I don't think, if that hadn't happened. And so although a lot of people, they kind of project on me like, oh, that must have been really hard. I think I had a pretty good head on my shoulders at the time where I was like, well, it's only hair. People have way worse. And I always kind of look at things in my life as this is happening for me. What can I learn? How can I grow from this? And, hindsight's always 20/20. So when you look back over everything, it's like everything happened exactly as it was meant to be because it put me on this path. So that was 17, senior year of high school, in the space of 6 weeks, losing everything, but gaining so much more in the process.
That is a tough age. I can understand why people project on you, oh my God, that would have been hard, because I can only imagine at 17, that's not something that you want to be going through. But I do understand, like hindsight's 20/20. If it didn't happen, it wouldn't have pushed you down the path that you're on right now. Even that event, it was sort of an eye-opening event because it showed you that what a lot of people know about health and nutrition only accounts for a very small amount of our health. I mean, if something like this happens, there's no playbook, there's no rule book for how to treat it. This is something that I'm assuming would sideline most doctors, GPs, family practitioners. So what was the thing that you learned about health, wellness, healthcare medical system that you wanted to solve for when this autoimmune disease basically got rid of all your hair at such a young age?
Yeah. So two things. One, I was really fit because I was training to be a pro soccer player. Like that was my whole teenage existence, was like, I'm going to play pro soccer. So I didn't distinguish the difference between being fit and healthy. So I was fit, but I wasn't healthy. I was tired all the time, sleeping half my days, pretty much 12 hours a day between naps and sleep at night. I thought it was because I was active, but the reality is my body was just like worn out from dealing with years of garbage. I'm talking about the standard American diet, all sorts of shots, antibiotics, the whole bit. And I think my constitution was maybe a little bit more susceptible to just going a little bit haywire. So I'm not saying those exact same things would happen to someone else, but in my case, they did. And so as I started going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out like what's going on, the only thing we knew at the time in terms of like what my parents knew was like, let's go to the doctor. And so I started to really quickly see that the allopathic community was completely clueless with respect to how to deal with this. And it got to the point where, I mean, it didn't even get to the point. It was just like their first course of action was, let's inject some cortisone into your scalp. I'm like, that's never going to happen. Like that's not solving the problem. So when I went to, GPs or immunologists or, the whole spectrum, like there was no solutions. And that's when I started, we started opening up doors into more of the alternative, right? So traditional Chinese medicine, naturopathy, all sorts of different practitioners. And we started seeing some better results there, but still nothing was really, when you have alopecia universalis, which is like total body hair loss, the recovery is like less than 10% in terms of like, regrowing your hair. So we had tried some stuff and, some of the stuff was a bit better than others, but I liked the fact that it was more root cause as opposed to let's just inject cortisone in your head, which didn't make sense to me. So during that process, and this is like an 8-year process, so from the time I'm 17 to like 24 and a half, we're going to all sorts of specialists, trying all sorts of stuff. And, meanwhile, I'm kind of like finishing up high school, going into university. I went to the University of Toronto, which is one of the top 20 schools in the world for kinesiology and health sciences. And I still learned nothing about any of the stuff. Like I went to school for kinesiology and I was very, very skilled and skilled up, if you will, on the human body, biomechanics, physiology, and it was amazing, but I was still clueless when it came to nutrition. I didn't understand how important nutrition was until, so I actually played pro soccer in my early 20s when I graduated. And then I decided to retire at 25. I came back to Toronto and then I went back to school to study holistic nutrition. And that was the moment that changed my life, because I was like, whoa. So you're telling me I remember the first day learning stuff about nutrition and the body that I had never heard in my life. And I'm thinking, okay, I played pro soccer. I went to one of the top 20 schools in the world and I still had no idea about this stuff. And I was like, whoa. So I started to really adopt a lot of the teachings of like, okay, maybe let's clean up our internal environment and like remove some of the allergenic foods, take some of the burden off the immune system. And literally in 2 months, I regrew all my hair. Now, fast forward 10 years, obviously I don't have any hair because, long story short, I got a tetanus booster from my doctor and then my hair fell out again. But needless to say, I started to recognize like, holy cow, like if I can clean up my body, wow. But the more important thing for me was how much energy I felt. And that's why I ended up writing the book, The All Day Energy Diet, was starting to see how powerful like the internal body is when it's just cleaned up. But I'm not saying going on a radical diet. I'm just saying removing the garbage and just adding better nutrition in. It changed my life. And I had to share that with as many people as possible. And that's, again, like what really moved me in that direction of wanting to share that message. But yeah, again, a lot of it was very it was non-traditional, right? So I was never one to be looking at the number of calories or the percentage of protein or the number, like the required intake of vitamin C on a daily basis. That very dietetic allopathic approach never really resonated with me. And I started to see that it was a lot of the stuff that was almost fringe, like understanding the stuff that we can't see that's infinitely more powerful than what we can see. Or if you look at a food label, how most schools teach nutrition, at least in the traditional model, is you look at the nutrition facts, how many calories, how much sugar, how much protein. No one was talking about the quality of ingredients. Like, so I could be a diabetic Not that I am, but I could be a diabetic and Coke Zero would be okay for me because there's no sugar. Well, what about the fact that it's got aspartame? And that's a neurotoxin. Like, so I started to learn all this stuff, and it was just like it blew my lid. And I had to share this with more people. So that became a really important foundation for a lot of the message that I shared over the next 10 to 15 years through my health business.
It's really unnerving when you think about all the stuff that we put into our bodies and how ignorant we are about how food and allergenics and our environment impact us. And I've had a couple conversations on this podcast about this now. I think when you look, again, you mentioned this, but when you look back and the fact that you lost your hair, this was a signal that your body was giving you that what you were putting into it was horrible for it. Most of us don't have that signal. So most of us just go through life not really feeling like we need to investigate what we put into our bodies because there's not such a pronounced red flag that happens to us. We don't lose our hair. We're kind of just, oh, we feel okay. We're not great. We get sick a couple times a year. It's normal, whatever. And you go to your family doctor, your GP, and if something radical isn't happening, they're not going to talk to you about going to some alternative medicine route. They're definitely not even very well versed in nutrition. And foods, and not only macronutrients, but micronutrients. The whole healthcare system has no idea how to teach somebody how to live truly healthy lives, how to work out.
Sure.
It's a sick care system. When you look at what happened to you, that was a blessing because it allowed you to investigate and to research. But most people don't have that luxury. And what happens, I feel more often than not, is that brain fog, that lack of mental clarity, that just feeling tired all the time. Now we look at people that their hormones are all out of whack. They go their whole life feeling like shit, and they don't even know what feeling good looks like. And I think that that's actually horrifying because we're living longer than ever, but I don't think we're living well. I don't think we're actually healthy. So when you wrote a book about it, you obviously built a community around health and true wellness and energy and sort of peak performance and optimal performance. What are some of the major levers that people can look at in their life so that they can at least get a glimpse of what they could be or how they could be operating or how they could be feeling or the energy levels they could be having or the sex drive they should be having, like all these things that I think are not optimized right now with a traditional American diet? What are the things that people should be looking at? Allergens, foods, whatever.
So, I mean, it's a great question. And the thing to remember that I've realized is like most people normalize their situation. And part of my mission has always been to help people see how bad it is without making people feel bad about what they're going through. But it's like, don't normalize the fact that what you're going through is normal. Like just because it's normal doesn't mean it's natural. And I see this so much, even as we're supporting our clients, because we help health professionals grow their businesses and seeing the conversations they have with prospects. I've had migraines for 20 years and they laugh about it. I'm like, that's not even, what are you laughing about? Right? It's so painful that they have to laugh about it so they can sleep at night. And the human, like, as a species, we're very interesting because we will not change until the pain of our current situation is very, very dramatic. So for me, it was kind of a blessing. Again, I was like, low energy, I didn't think it was a big deal. Lose my hair, yeah, now something has to change. I only realized in retrospect that low energy is a warning sign that something far greater, far more dangerous is brewing underneath the surface. It's almost like a volcanic eruption just waiting to go. But a lot of times, and this is the thing, is like for me, it happened at 17. For someone else, it might happen at 52. For someone else, it might happen at 75. And we go through life and we normalize this like, oh, it's just part of aging. Or it's like, well, maybe it's not. So I think the biggest thing that I would recommend for anyone, to be honest, is to just go on a cleanse. And I know it sounds a little bit extreme because here's the thing that I recognize was that when I started to get rid of garbage, when I say garbage, I mean the standard American foods out of my diet, and I simply just nourished myself with whole foods, more plants, more nutrients, and I got rid of the allergens, whether it was, dairy, gluten, etc. For the first time in my life, I was like, holy shit, this is what it feels like to feel like normal, whatever. But the thing is, like, you can't, I can only tell someone that. I mean, you can't tell someone they have to experience it. And so for me, it was like that like come to Jesus moment, almost like I was so blown away by the difference for me personally in my energy, where I was going from 10 hours of sleep a night to 6 hours and bouncing out of bed. And I'm thinking, this all happened in a week? Like, what's going on? And then noticing the correlation between my energy and my hair regrowth. I was like, huh. So I think the single most effective thing that someone can go through is actually just cold turkey, go on a cleanse, because it's going to be very difficult. You're going to feel like shit for a couple of days, but after you do that for a week, 2 weeks, when you go through that like discomfort of like all the garbage in your system making its way out, and you start to like your body starts to feel alive again, that's the moment when you have the epiphany. And at that point, then you can make a decision from a place of information, because now you can say, okay, now I know what it feels like to be amazing. Now I have the choice. Do I want to add this stuff back in now that I've seen the other side? And I think that's probably the most eye-opening process any of us can go through. And it's what I've seen with people, whether they're doing like a 24-hour fast, like intermittent fasting. Everyone's like, oh my God, there's no way I could do it. And then they get through the fast and they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize how I'm not even hungry. I'm just bored, and how fixated I am on food. And so just going through a 1-day fast is it's such an eye-opening introspective process that we're just going through life on autopilot. And these moments, whether it's a 24-hour fast or a 7-day cleanse, although it can be challenging the first time you do it, is probably one of the best things you can ever do, because once you experience it, you will always have that reference point. And then for everything else you do in life, then it's just a matter of like, well, what's the standard? Do I want to come back to the level, or am I okay living down here? And that's a very, very powerful place to live through, as opposed to, taking someone's advice, just like, oh, you should definitely do this, you'll feel better. It's like, well, until you feel better, you won't really know. So that would be, my advice. Just like cold turkey, clean everything out, experience it for yourself, and then you can decide.
It's so interesting how what you're advocating for is just removing everything and then adding back in and seeing how it impacts you, versus what a lot of people do, which is they keep layering on more and more to their existing shitty condition. They'll take caffeine, they'll take some sort of nootropic to gain mental clarity, they'll take this this supplement, that supplement to optimize this, that, or whatever. So you're just adding on all these. You're trying to improve a shitty system. Like, let's just reset the system at its core. Now you built a whole business around this. So talk to me about the best business analogy is blue ocean, because this is not stuff that people have done before. So when you're bringing a novel concept like this to the market, how do you get people to get on board with your fitness ideology, your health ideology? Because fitness ideology, health ideology, if you've ever been in this space, there's almost like a zealotry to what people believe. Like, if they've been told one thing by one fitness influencer about keto or paleo or, low carb, high protein, or, like moderate carb, moderate protein, or going to the gym and doing like a CrossFit versus a bodybuilding split, like, people get so stuck in their ways, it's very hard for them to change their perception of what their fitness should be or could be. So when you, as somebody who understood that this happened to them, you're trying to build a business around this concept and this ideology of remove and then re-add and focus on good foods and whole foods and nutrient-dense foods, and you don't have to go with all the fad diets or whatnot, or or now people are adding on Ozempic or everything like that. How do you build a business in this space successfully when it's against the grain of what people know?
Yeah. I mean, number one, if you look at, any type of quote unquote influencer personality, someone who's got a voice, it's all about the conviction that they have. That's it. Like all of us are running micro religions. That's what all this stuff is, right? So someone who's all keto, or, the animal diet or the carnivore diet, or those are micro religions that people are building. They're saying, I'm a zealot for this philosophy, and this is the only way of doing things. And to be honest, it's radical, because it's all of these other options don't make sense except for this one thing. But the reality is, to stand out, you have to take a stance. I mean, if you look at someone like Liver King, I don't know if you've seen his stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he is very, very opinionated, and he is very articulate whether or not you agree with him or is irrelevant, but he's built a very large business because of who he is and how he shares his philosophy unapologetically. I think the biggest mistake people make is they're trying to be liked by everyone. And it's the single biggest reason they fail in business, because they don't say what they want to say because they're afraid of stepping on toes. And no one cares about people like that. It's like, we don't want more plain vanilla. We want people who are opinionated and have a stance on stuff. It's polarizing. You will bother some people and they will throw stones at you. And at the same time, you will magnetically attract those people who agree with you. So the funny thing is, like, it's not even about being objectively true. Like, there is no objective truth when it comes to health. Like, this is part of the thing that I've recognized. Like, you listed off like a dozen different things. Someone might do well on Atkins. Someone might do well on a carnivore diet. Someone else might. I was raw vegan for 6 months and I loved it at the time, but I couldn't sustain that forever. And I think it's, for me personally, I'm like, I don't really care what you do. Just do something that you can sustain, that feels good for you and your lifestyle and your body, right? Like, I'm not, over time, I became, when I started, and I think, again, at least my journey, I was much more dogmatic, let's say, about, eating more plant-based foods, more alkalinity, getting rid of the acid, the acidosis and toxicity in the body. And for me, I've evolved to be a lot more liberal with respect to my food. Like, I enjoy coffee, but 10 years ago, I demonized it. And that's just been part of my own evolution. And I think, I want to give people, and I've always wanted to give people permission to, you got to do what's best for you, because it's exhausting to see people try to fit into these labels and the amount of guilt and shame they put on themselves for not being perfect. Like, oh my God, I had a piece of bread. I'm the worst. Yeah, I had to go and repent my sins. And it's like, no, like, the reality is the energy you put into the food you're eating is probably more important than the food you're eating. So if you are having a really nice salad, but it's not locally grown, 100% organic, and you feel like it's not good enough for you, energetically, your body's not going to assimilate those nutrients to the fullest. So I think whatever you're eating, just enjoy it. And, to the best of your ability, educate yourself about, this is part of the problem, is most people have no clue about their own body. They have no clue about nutrition. And on the flip side, there's so much information that it becomes overwhelming and confusing. So I think part of the journey is you have to experiment, you have to try things out, and there's nothing wrong with trying something out and then recognizing that it may not make a lot of sense for you. But I think a lot of people they almost score themselves like, that didn't work, or I failed at that thing. It's like, did you, or did you just learn that it didn't make sense for you? And I think just giving yourself a little bit more compassion, because the reality is you can live a very good quality of life with any of these diets, but it's about really figuring out what's going to make the most sense for you, right? If you look at the blue zones around the world, like people who live more than 100 years old, they don't all have the same diet. And in fact, the diet is such a small component compared to everything else, whether it's community or living in a hilly village where you're walking uphill more. There's all sorts of other components. And I think we just obsess, especially in North America, we obsess so much about the food. And you go to Europe, they don't give a shit. They just eat food, they enjoy it. There's no guilt or shame. It's like, it is what it is. And I just think the energy and the amount of focus we put on being perfect here with our food is the biggest problem. It's just like, enjoy the friggin' food. It's all good, right? And do your best to have a well-balanced approach, whatever that might look like for you.
I just want to take a quick break and thank the HubSpot Podcast Network for supporting Success Story for the past few years. Now, the HubSpot Podcast Network has other incredible podcasts like My First Million. Now, if you are an entrepreneur or you are ready to turn your entrepreneurial dreams into millions, you have to listen to My First Million. It's a show that is revolutionizing business podcasting. It's hosted by Sam Parr, Sean Purry. This is a HubSpot Podcast Network original. It brings you unfiltered conversations with self-made millionaires who actually tell you how they did it. If you want to learn how Alex Hormozi built his fitness empire, or how Sophia Amoruso turned Nasty Girl into a fashion phenomenon, these aren't just success stories, they're the blueprints for your own journey to the top. Each episode breaks down the exact strategies and hidden opportunities that you can use right now. Don't just dream about your first million, learn how to make it. Listen to My First Million wherever you get your podcasts. I just want to take a second and thank Cornbread Hemp for supporting today's episode. Now, Cornbread Hemp CBD gummies have been this really nice addition to my wellness toolkit. I don't use them every day, just when I want to unwind after those extra busy weeks, but they're perfect for those moments when you want to take the edge off and just find your balance, really just shut off from work. And what makes them special is how Cornbread Hemp crafts them. They only use the flower of USDA organic hemp plants. That's the best part. For the purest, most potent experience, no fillers, no artificial fluff, just clean, full spectrum goodness in delicious watermelon, berry, and peach flavor. I keep them in my nightstand for those moments when I just need a little extra help relaxing, and I love how transparent they are too. Every batch is third-party lab tested, so you know exactly what you're getting, and they put together a special offer for all Success Story podcast listeners. All listeners can save 30% off their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/success and use code success at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/success, code success for 30% off your first order of these amazing gummies. FreshBooks is supporting today's episode, and if you've ever wondered how successful entrepreneurs stay on top of their finances while growing their business, the answer is FreshBooks. The numbers don't lie. Over 30 million people have chosen FreshBooks, processing more than 60 billion in invoices and saving an incredible 192 hours every year on accounting tasks. Think about it. That's nearly 8 full days you could get back to focus on what really matters: growing your business. FreshBooks is more than just accounting software. It's your all-in-one financial command center. Create professional estimates, track time, automatically bill clients, and capture expenses on the go. Plus, it integrates seamlessly with over 100 business tools you already use, all backed by award-winning customer service. If you're ready to stop drowning in receipts and you're ready to stop chasing down payments, here's what I want you to do. Head over to freshbooks.com to start your 30-day free trial, no credit card required. And for all you Success Story listeners out there, I've got something special. Get an exclusive 60% off for 6 months when you visit freshbooks.com/pricing-offer. Transform your business with FreshBooks today. That's freshbooks.com/pricing-offer for 60% off. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, it's never about diet. It's about lifestyle change. And people hear that, but I feel like they don't live it. I feel like they do get all caught up in like one diet or the other. And because people are social creatures. They want to be a member of this particular tribe. I think people like to be associated with the tribe, and diet is a big part of people's personality. So if they see something that's working, it's almost like this is the only way that it can work. And I think the most annoying person in the world is the person that just started a diet that's working. It is the most frustrating person to talk to and just hang out with. Because they just can't talk about anything else. But that's not a healthy message, because like you mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to live your life. There's a lot of different ways to be healthy. You shouldn't feel shame if you're trying one diet or the other. It's not the diet that you saw some guru talk about on YouTube. If it works, it works. But I do believe that. So what I wish, and I think this is what you do very well. What I wish more people who are trying to build businesses in the health and wellness space, I wish what they would do is they would have their message, they'd have their diet that they want to teach to people, they'd have their framework, but they wouldn't pretend like nothing else works. I think you do that very well. Not many people do that, and it makes me mistrust and not trust a lot of health and wellness thought leaders. The reason why I trust you so much is because you're like, this is what's worked for me. I'm going to teach you how to do this particular thing, but know that there's a whole bunch of other things that can also help you. And I think it's a real message. It's like, I don't go to Liver King for health and wellness advice, because I know that there's a hint of truth, but I know there's a lot of bullshit as well, because he's saying that this is the only way to be healthy. And there's a lot of bullshit for a whole bunch of other reasons with Liver King, but that's besides the point, because you want to understand that the person who you're taking wisdom from and insight from has your best interests in mind. And you can't believe that if they only say that this one diet is the only way to achieve health, wellness, abs, whatever you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting conversation, because from a business perspective, it really it helps when you have a very polarized stance. But to your point, when trust is at an all-time low and people see everything, like we live in a pretty sophisticated market, whether it's, business or health information. So people have seen everything or tried a lot of stuff. For me, at least, the way I approach this, even with business, because I've been online since 2005. So I have a very, let's call it a very opinionated philosophy about how to build a business online. but I always reference context, which is like, hey, the reason I suggest this is because I've done all of this, and this stuff can work. It'll just take forever. So this is what we found to work really well for us and our clients. And, if you're this type of person, it might work for you as well, as opposed to saying, this is the only way to do it, and there's nothing else that matters. I don't, to your point, I don't think it builds credibility and trust as much. Whereas if I can tell someone, listen, like there's a lot of value in blogging, right? Like if you want to blog, cool. It took me 7 years to build up our blog to 1.4 million visitors per month. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It just takes forever. So if you want to do that, cool. Or you could do this, which is just faster. I always want to give people context. I think it's one of the most important things that's lacking when people, consider themselves experts, is they have this one way of seeing the world. And I think it really like shoots them in the foot when they can't speak around the other alternatives, because everyone's thinking about the other alternatives. Well, what if I did this? I could also do that. But if you speak to those, all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, you've already considered all these things. And this doesn't make a lot of sense based on that logical argument. So let me consider this instead. That's been my approach, at least. But again, I think that comes from experience. Like if you've been around, whether it's health or business for a long time, you can speak from that. And that's why I think it's so easy, to be honest, to have a better business these days, because most people are gurus after like a good month now, and they haven't.
Well, that's the thing. And I think that's why it signals low trust.
Yeah.
Because they've only ever done that one thing.
Yeah.
And it shows that if you've only ever done that one thing, then you actually shouldn't be teaching anything, because you really don't have an understanding of all the different ways you can lose weight, all the different ways you can build a business. Yeah. And it just shows it shows it shows lack of experience.
Yeah.
Really, that's what it signals. Okay, so you work with people that are trying to sort of transition from just being a quote unquote personal trainer to building a business. That's sort of the core demo that you work with.
Practitioners. So trainers are part of that, but like, doctors, naturopaths, chiros, physios, the whole spectrum of wellness practitioners. Either they're in a clinic and they want to get out, want to move online because they want more time and location freedom, or they already have a service offering, a coaching offering online, but they're like, how do I grow this? Because I have no way to be seen, be visible. So we help them with the acquisition of new clients and then how to deliver amazing results, even if they never saw someone in person. And that's really our wheelhouse.
How many different versions of entrepreneurship did you go through? So you were a personal trainer, and then you did online coaching. You obviously built a massive YouTube channel. You wrote a book. So you've tried a whole bunch of different things. There's probably a lot of stuff that you've tried that I had no idea that you've tried. Shelved it after it didn't work.
Cars, shoveling grass, kid. That's where it all started. Yeah.
So if you look at sort of your own journey, because I know that's probably where all this teaching and this insight comes from. Walk me through sort of how you evolved your business over time, and that can give some framework for how other people should sort of emulate.
Yeah. So I think, for me, my first business was, I was sick and tired of seeing people in person. I was like burnt out from one-on-one. So I'm like, I don't ever want to see humans again. I'm going to come online and read ebooks and live the laptop lifestyle. It didn't happen. So I struggled for a couple of years trying to figure that out. And obviously it didn't work. So 3 years after, that and living on poverty line income, I got some coaching and I got some clarity around, maybe I need to develop some marketing skills and learn about systems and how to do this whole internet thing. So I went through everything, we did heavy amounts of information, content marketing, YouTube, blogging, eventually social media when it came out. Wrote the books, did the summits, we got into physical products and courses and e-com and everything you can think of, right? So from my perspective, I'm always looking at, okay, what is someone's context? Like if someone wants to sell supplements, I'm not really going to be the guy to come to you. Hey, there's other people out there that teach that. But if you want to grow a higher ticket coaching type of service that is going to dramatically transform someone's life, well, number one is you have to people have to know you exist, because it doesn't matter how good you are if no one knows who you are. And that's the fundamental biggest issue for any smart person is I have all these letters behind my name, but no one knows I exist. Well, it doesn't matter how smart you are, right? There's a lot of less smart people that are doing very well because they understand how to market themselves. So I'm always looking at what's the context of someone's situation coming in. If you want to sell a $33 a month membership, then unless you're open to a better alternative, assuming you want to help people transform and make more money, again, I'm not going to be the membership guy. But if you're here to talk about like, how do I get clients who are going to pay me several $1,000s to transform their life, then my belief is that there is one vehicle that's the fastest. And for us, we call it a perfect client pipeline. It's essentially running ads to an evergreen masterclass that leads into booking a discovery call. And that's how we've built Healthpreneur from like 0 to multiple 8 figures. And it's how we've helped more than 1,300 of our clients do that. Now, that's not to say that organic, like YouTube, all that stuff doesn't work. It just takes much longer. Like for context, it took me it took me 7 years to make my first $1 million in my first business, which was, to the average person from a health perspective. It took me 7 weeks when I started Healthpreneur because I had that experience and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do any of that stuff anymore because it was just massively complex. And I'm going to do one thing that I know how to do really well, and I'm just going to focus on that. And that's how we grew so fast with Healthpreneur. So a lot of what I share is from a lot of trials and tribulations and a lot of the stuff I did in my previous business. And I'm really happy I did a lot of that stuff because it provided me a tremendous amount of experience to recognize like, well, I don't want to build. Part of the reason I sold the company was I didn't want to be involved in it. Like I created a Medusa. Like it was so complex and there were so many products and so many funnels and everything was mediocre in terms of how it was optimized because we just didn't have the resources and bandwidth to optimize every single product and funnel. And it was so complicated. So on the surface, it looked really successful. We helped 500,000 people to better health and, became a New York Times bestselling author. But on the inside, I'm like, I want to get out of here. Like I want nothing to do with this thing because it was just crazy. And so I see people want to go down that same route. And I'm like, hold on, I understand you want to go down that route. But I was actually telling my team, one of the most challenging types of people to work with is someone who's like, I want to do this thing and they haven't actually entered the jungle yet. So they don't know how bad it's going to be until it happens.
Well, because the people that you work with, so whether or not it's a naturopath or some sort of health practitioner or coach, these are people that are just one-on-one service providers.
Yeah.
That's really it.
They're getting...
So then they go down this, So they go down this entrepreneurial rabbit hole and they're like, oh my God. First of all, I would assume that many people do not even go down this entrepreneurial rabbit hole. But once they do, they see like a million different ways to monetize what they know. And they're like, let me just try and do all of it. And that creates a really shitty business.
Yes. And I mean, to no fault of their own, like it's hard because like, even if you just scroll through social media, like every third post is an ad. So it's like, we guarantee clients in 5 seconds or you don't pay, or like, it's just nonstop. Like do this thing, you have to create an app. Like it's very, very overwhelming. And I think, what we try to do for our clients is we want to give them the very singular path and like, just put the blinders on because all this stuff can work, but none of it will work if you try to do it at the same time. And so we want our clients to be sold on this process, which we teach. And then as they build the foundation and they have it running, then it's like, cool. Then if you want to layer on top, like if you want to have a podcast or if you want to build a YouTube channel, by all means, go for it. It's great. Like those in the long term, they are going to be the source of your best clients, people who already know, like, and trust you. But it just takes forever to start there. So it's like, if you have to like earn money now, unless you have a briefcase of cash, like sitting around, like you have to be able to have a way to acquire clients predictably where you can, spend $1, make 5 in return or whatever that might be, as opposed to, trying all sorts of different stuff. And again, the problem is like a lot of people are we're very hopeful that the thing that we haven't tried is the thing that's going to help us get to the promised land. And a lot of times it's just like, you haven't done the thing you're doing well enough to even get there. So it's not about jumping ship. It's about, saying I often say to my clients, like the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greenest where you water it. But at the same time, it's very challenging for most people to just stay in one lane and go deep. And I was that guy for many years in my previous business. So I'm like, okay, cool, got that going, next. And it was exhausting. And so part of what we do is we do our very best to keep our clients almost like walking our kids on the sidewalk. Just like stay on the sidewalk, don't jump on the road. Let's just go this direction.
What you're saying is very interesting because what I see a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs do is for some reason they screw up the definition of an entrepreneur and they feel like entrepreneurship is about becoming famous or becoming well-known or And I don't really understand why those two seem to be synonymous ideas, but then people try and build audiences on social media, or they start a podcast, and all of a sudden you've just added 1,000% more effort to your day, and you don't have a product or anything to really sell to that audience. So then you're just you get into this almost this trap, this hamster wheel of creating content for nothing at all. Whereas if you are a service provider, so the strategy that you are telling people to try, as opposed to just building an audience just to build an audience, or building a community, or putting out ebooks, you're saying, let's focus on high ticket first. So let's find a way to run ads to a masterclass that's going to educate the audience, and then we're going to convert those into and the high ticket product is what? One-on-one still, or is it another product?
It can be either one. It can be one-on-one. We're big advocates of group or leverage coaching, because we've actually found that it produces better results because you have a community as opposed to just like one-on-one. And for the practitioner or the coach, there's way more leverage. Like you can't scale your time. So it just provides more.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, so this way you're not worrying about like getting this massive audience on Instagram for no reason at all. Yes, you can have some sort of content that paints you as an authority, but ultimately the opportunity to become an authority to convert this audience is in that masterclass. That's the piece that makes up for the lack of 1 million Instagram followers, which is going to take you tons of time and energy to build anyways.
Yeah, and honestly, like I'm not saying like not having an audience. Like having an audience is a huge asset. I mean, if you have one, by all means, it's just going to help you go faster. Like when we have clients come into us and they have 50,000 Instagram followers, we're like, well, you're going to crush this in the first 7 days because we can tap into that. But what I'm most proud of is, we're able to shine. So we're helping practitioners who have they're like alchemists. They're like magicians that no one knows about. And they don't have large followings. Some of them don't even have an online presence. And they're just like, I just know how to help people with migraines or help people with IBS.
Yeah. And it's all word of mouth.
It's all word of mouth in their clinic, or the people fall in their laps, right? And we're able to amplify that awesomeness. And the beautiful part about that is, like with advertising, the way I look at advertising is most people don't necessarily look at an ad and then buy, right? They might, the odd person might, but they go through a process. But I look at advertising as I look at Facebook and Instagram as my personal platforms. Like instead of yes, we create content now, but for the first 3 years of this business, we did nothing other than this pipeline. So I had no Instagram, no YouTube, no podcast, nothing. And that's because we just wanted to focus on one thing. But still, if I look at all the content we produce and put out, and I compare that to the reach and impressions that we get with our ads, it's like 10-1 on the ads. So even if someone sees my ads over and over and over again, compared to content, there's no difference. The only thing that matters is that people see my face over and over and over again. One of the cognitive biases is called the mere exposure effect. So basically what that means is that when we are exposed to someone more often, we have a tendency to like them more or trust them more. This is why Trump won the election many, many years ago, and we'll see what happens this week, because he had 3 times as much free media coverage compared to Clinton.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even, you could have a monkey running for president. And if the monkey had the most exposure, they would most likely win. So advertising is almost it's like using Facebook or Instagram as your personal blog. It's just people see your stuff more often. Like you're paying for visibility. What you don't get necessarily are the conversions. Now that's where you obviously have to have your messaging and offer dialed in. But the problem with organic is that it takes forever. Not everyone sees your stuff. And every platform is pay to play. So if you can learn that game, it's one of the fastest ways to grow a business.
And what you're optimizing for, again, is building a business, not just becoming famous to become famous. And I do believe that people over-index on building an audience and looking at some vanity metrics and feeling like, oh, I'm doing a good job, give myself a pat on the back. Is it actually leading to revenue? Is it actually leading to people paying you for your product or service? And I think that's what you're solving for. I don't know why people want to become famous. I feel like people just should want to make more money. That's really the goal.
Funny. I was actually just talking to a guy on Instagram. He had 671,000 followers.
Yeah.
And he just cold DMs me. He's like, hey man, can you, I'm looking to build I'm looking to hire some sales reps, severs, and someone to do my email marketing. Is that something you guys can help with? To help us go from 15K per month to 100K per month. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, his whole business unfolded in front of my eyes. Because I'm like, you're most likely undercharging. You have no proven acquisition system to move people into a higher ticket. And so we're having this conversation, and lo and behold, he's charging little to nothing. And I'm like, for your size following, just so you know, your business should be well over $1 million. And it's because his business wasn't optimized, as you said, to like actually grow a business. Like he just had a lot of followers who are doing nothing. And I said, just for context, like our clients don't even hire their first VA until they're at about 25 or 30K per month, let alone hire a whole marketing team and sales reps. Like you have no margins to even do that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of, again, we always do the best we can with what we know. And most people just don't know how to build a business. Like they think they have to hire a PR person so they can be on TV.
Yeah.
And then they're on TV and then it's like, then what? Like I was on Dr. Oz in 2014 and we sold 10,000 books in a day. And then the next week, nothing. Right?
Crickets.
It's a blip on the radar, and everyone's like, that one appearance is going to be everything. It's nothing. It's a blip on the radar. If you don't have a foundation underneath that, you don't have a business. You're just going to be jumping from one thing to the next. You know, you're like a dancing monkey in a circus.
A big thank you to Indeed for supporting Success Story, because hiring people is one of the hardest things you're ever going to have to do as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as somebody who's trying to build a business. It's important to hire well and find the right person, but it takes so much time and it's so labor intensive because, like most entrepreneurs, you have 1,000 things going on, and there's a good chance that you just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. So how can you find that great, amazing, right fit candidate fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed, because you don't have to waste time struggling to get your job posts seen on all these other job sites. If you're using Indeed, you can just use their sponsored jobs to help you stand out and hire fast. Your post jumps right to the top of the page for relevant candidates, so you can reach out to exactly who you're looking for faster, and the results really speak for themselves. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. And you know what I love most about Indeed? It really just makes hiring so fast, because everything is streamlined in one place. No more juggling multiple platforms or waiting weeks for the right candidate. And how fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed, and listeners of Success Story will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Clary. Terms and conditions do apply. Just go to Indeed.com/Clary. A huge thank you to NetSuite for supporting today's episode. Now, what does the future hold for business? If you ask 9 experts, you're going to get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market, inflation up, inflation down. Honestly, at this point, you just need a crystal ball. But until we get one, over 41,000 businesses have found the next best thing. They future-proofed their businesses, their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, which is the #1 cloud ERP. Imagine having your accounting, your financial management, your inventory, your HR, all flowing together in one fluid platform. And here's what makes NetSuite different. It gives you one source of truth for your business. You get the visibility and control to make quick, confident decisions while others are guessing. You're working with real-time data, insights, forecasting. You're basically looking into the future of your business with actionable data, whether your company earns a couple million or even hundreds of millions. NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and helps you grab your biggest opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, they put together the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Scott Clary. This is the playbook for understanding how to use AI for your business. The guide is free. That is netsuite.com/Scott Clary. A shout out to NordVPN for supporting today's episode. I have to tell you a story. So I was actually in Toronto visiting family last month, and I went to binge some of my favorite Netflix shows. I forgot, and I realized that half of my US shows weren't available in Canada. Super annoying. Flipped on NordVPN. Within seconds, I got access to everything. Now, it's not just about watching shows. What makes NordVPN a game changer? Really just imagine having this personal security guard for your entire digital life. With just one click, you're connected to one of their 7,100 servers across 118 countries. I mainly use it for accessing streaming services when I travel, but I've also saved hundreds on flight bookings by checking prices from different countries. And their new Threat Protection Pro blocks all those endless pop-ups and suspicious links before they even get get to me. And what I love most is how simple it is. One account, 10 devices, so laptop, phone, iPad, everything's covered. And the speed, honestly, it's so fast that I forget that I'm even using a VPN. And the best part, I've got a special offer just for Success Story listeners. So head over to nordvpn.com/success. And you'll not only get their best discount, but they'll throw in an extra 4 months on the 2-year plan. And don't worry about commitment because they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description. Trust me, it's worth checking out, especially if you travel or stream content regularly. That's nordvpn.com/success. If you look at that funnel that you've built out, I have a couple questions. And I think these are questions that people would ask or reasons as to why they wouldn't jump into the funnel the way that you've built it out and why they're trying to hire salespeople and trying to build an audience. So in 2024, post iOS update, Facebook ads, it's really hard to make them profitable. So people are looking for alternative. Well, no, I mean like pre-Facebook update. Yes, I know, maybe because you do this for a living. So obviously this is the answer to the question. So what is the strategy to still use Facebook or Google, or I don't even know if you use Bing or some sort of performance marketing successfully? What is so that you still run a positive ROAS of 5x, $1 spent, $5 back kind of campaign?
So the most important thing is your offer and your messaging. So a lot of people can build a funnel. I mean, you can get ClickFunnels and build some pages and stick them together, like great, but that doesn't mean anything. So we call it a high converting offer. So there's like 5 components to it. And essentially part of it is really like the messaging is very important. So with respect to advertising, some of the best audiences are just broad. So like 30 to 50, no interests, like just broad. And Facebook's algorithm or Meta is so advanced now that if your messaging is on point and you start getting conversions like leads or calls booked, whatever you're optimizing for, Meta will find more of those people. And so it's incredibly, a lot of people started freaking out when Facebook started getting rid of a lot of these very targeted interests. And I'm like, guys, this is actually way better because now your ads management is so much easier. You don't need to granularize all of your campaigns. You can just have a broad campaign, but here's the key. And I've been saying this since 2016. Message is everything. Your messaging is everything. It's not about the campaign structure. It's not about the audience. Like, yes, obviously that factors into it, but if your messaging is horrible, if it's ambiguous, if it's not clear, if it doesn't speak to the pain points or the desires, it's never going to work. So that's 100% the most important thing on any platform. The second thing is understanding the economics of your business. So I speak with enough people where I've actually shot some videos about this on YouTube, and they want to sell a $200 course, right? So I'm going to sell a course. I want to make passive income, and I'm like, cool. So I noticed you've got like 100 followers on Instagram. What's the game plan? Like, no one's buying the course, and I'll break down. I'm like, let's just say that you wanted to run ads. Cool. So you're going to pay what, $1 per click to run ads to like a sales page that like less than 1% of people are going to buy from because they don't even trust you. So when you break down the math, economically, it doesn't even make sense to run ads to anything other than a high ticket offer. With the exception, the exception to this is if you are a very, very experienced marketer where you understand copywriting to a very high level, you know how to string together a very compelling offer and upsell flow where you can increase the average order value to whatever. But you have to understand that like running ads to a low ticket offer is one of the hardest things to ever make profitable. Most of my first business was on that stuff. And just for context, my last big push in that business was a free plus shipping offer for a cookbook. So it's a free cookbook. We'd send it to your door. You pay $7.95 for shipping, but you can't make money on that. So we split tested 9 different upsell flows. Each one had a combination of 4 different upsells, so 36 possible variations, all so that we could increase the average order value from $18 to $22, so we were profitable. And I'm like, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous. By contrast, if you have, for instance, like a perfect client pipeline where you're running ads, you bring people in to watch a masterclass, a percentage of them are like, wow, this makes sense. Like, I jive with your philosophy. Next step is to book a call. If you spoke to 10 people, and let's say you charge $5,000, and you were the worst at converting people on the phone, even if you just enrolled 1 person out of 10, which is very, very normal for most people, you're still way more profitable than if you try to sell a low ticket item and having to fuss with upsell flows. So the benefit of, so one is the messaging has to be dialed in. The second is the economics of your business, and notably charging a higher ticket right off the bat. Because one, you'll attract people who actually want to solve the problem. Like, you're not just giving tips where transformation is required. You're helping someone fundamentally put an end to the problem they're suffering with. And that's the most important thing. It's like, why sell something for $5 when you could actually solve the person's problem and that's it for $5,000? Now, are people going to say it's too expensive, they can't afford it? For sure. But they're going to say that anyways at $100. So you don't need to speak with 100 people to get one yes like you would on a $10 ebook. You talk to 10 people, get one yes, you're profitable. And then you build the skill of learning how to have these conversations. So then on 10 conversations, maybe it's 3 or 4 people say yes. And all of a sudden you 4x your business just by building the skill, and nothing else in the funnel has changed. And that just gives you way more margin. So the reason I'm all in on this, at least with our market, is that we're working with health professionals, not sales professionals, right? We're not working with professional marketers. And what having a higher ticket offer allows them is it gives them so much more margin to not have to be perfect. Because if they charged $200, then they would have to be maniacal about every single part of their marketing, and they'd go crazy. Now, it's not to say that they shouldn't look at optimizing those things over time, but like, that's not what they want to do, and nor do you have to do that stuff. So those are the two big things to making Meta ads, Facebook ads work, is the messaging and then the offer in terms of having a higher price point.
So when you look at all the different things, different products that people can launch, you can have these lead magnets that are really free. If you have a $100 item or a $200 ebook or whatever, then maybe that is better suited. Maybe that could even be used as a lead magnet for a higher ticket offer, as opposed to you trying to, like you mentioned before, it's very hard to make that profitable. So maybe don't be running ads to that. If you had a large organic audience that you've already built, then maybe you can throw that into the mix and then upsell from there. But ultimately, you don't want to be spending money to acquire customers at like a sub $200 price point. That could be difficult. I mean, $20 or whatever is very difficult. 200, you could maybe do it, but still 5,000 makes a lot more sense. So if you start again, and this is all about focus, it's all about focusing on the thing that's going to make the most financial sense for your business. So it's not saying that you can't have a $100 product or a $20 ebook or a lead magnet and a high ticket item. It's like, okay, where should you start so you can start to make a little bit of money? So once you start to make a little bit of money, first of all, you can scale that. Maybe you realize you don't have to have a $100 or $20 or $50 product. Maybe you realize you can just stick with that. But also then that'll actually give you some revenue to help you build out these other products properly so that you're not stressed financially as you're trying to figure out the perfect possible, ad campaign for a $20, $30, $40, $50 product. Maybe that, or maybe you don't want to run ads. So maybe you hire somebody to help you with your social and you grow an organic audience and that product's for them. But ultimately, money makes the world go round, and you need some money to be able to test all these different things. Start with high ticket. When you want somebody to start with a high ticket product, how do they justify the value of that product? What are the things that they should look for in structuring that product so that it makes sense? I heard you mention transformation, which is important, but what does that actually mean to somebody who's trying to build something?
So the unique position that we're in with our clients is we're talking like we're helping world-class experts. Like these are practitioners and doctors who can save someone's life. Oh yeah, we're not just like, I just got certified last weekend, I lift some weights and I'm going to bring some clients on. Like we're talking about people who are world-class. And the challenge with our clients is that they actually devalue their own value because they're so close to it. And I'm like, hey guys, remember, like in my eyes, there's no other profession that is more important than, like, if someone's had debilitating migraines for 20 years, if they've been up and down on the weight roller coaster for 10 years and they feel like shit every time they look in the mirror, and you can come along and help them eradicate that problem, is that not worth $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000? Like, well, I want to make health accessible for everyone. Well, good, come to Canada and see how that works. It doesn't work, right? When people don't pay, they don't pay attention. And if you want to make healthcare accessible for everyone, my take is fill up your cup first with those who are willing to meet you at that level and then give everything else away for free. And you can do that, whether it's like for me, I'd say we have our hard ticket coaching, and then everything else I give away for free on YouTube. And, if you want to donate to charity, you can't donate to charity if you have no money. So that's the context. Like, you have to be an expert at solving a significant problem for someone. So if it's, and again, it's not just, you don't just have to be a health professional. Obviously, you can be into business or finances or accounting or anything where someone has a bleeding neck problem or a very, very strong desire. And obviously, if you go upstream, up market, where you're dealing with business owners or people in whatever neck of the woods they're in that are a little bit more sophisticated, then it's generally a little bit easier than working with absolute beginners, right? Like if you're working at beginners in any market, it's going to be a bit challenging to, go premium price. So the most important thing is to recognize, okay, where's the problem? Where's the bleeding neck problem that I can solve? And then understanding that it doesn't even matter what people charge. Like if you have competitors, which you probably will in any market, who cares what they charge? I would be looking at like obsessing about your clients instead of the competition. And at the end of the day, pricing in my eyes is 100% arbitrary. There's really no formula to saying, it should be 5,500 instead of 5,000. No, it's just like, where do you have the most conviction? And the way I look at this is like, as long as the value you're helping someone or you're giving to someone, and more specifically, the outcome you're helping them achieve is perceived or true in terms of its value relative to price, then you can price it wherever you feel comfortable. So if someone's able to save someone from 20 years of migraines, like how do you even put a price tag on that?
Yeah,
But one of the ways
I
you
understand
do
what you're
that,
saying, but I'd pay anything for that.
yeah, but also like with health, well, if you've got migraines, is like if you're working somewhere, is that a liability or an asset? Oh, you can't show up to work every other day. Do you think, well, what would happen if you lost your $80,000 a year job? Now we have an $80,000 a year problem, not just a $5,000 solution. So a lot of this is being able to have the conversation to show people the context of the gravity of their situation. And that could be a health thing. It could be, whether you're a contractor or like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's about being able to articulate the problem someone's experiencing. They have to be in enough pain to want to change. And then your solution needs to fundamentally solve the problem once and for all. And if you can do that, then there's no reason you shouldn't command premium prices. Because in my experience, you always get what you pay for in life.
Yeah.
Right. The only exception to that I've personally noticed is wine. I don't really drink, but I've also had $900 bottles of wine that were not as good as a $20 bottle. So,
but wine is not healthcare. Wine is not solving financial problems in your business. Wine is not solving the fact that my customer pipeline is drying up, and I'm, my revenue is declining year over year, and I have no idea what to do about it. And this is the only way I support my family. So I think that, yes, I think that bleeding neck problems are a little bit different. And I think that you do get what you pay for. I want to understand one other piece of how you position this. Because when you sell a high-ticket product or a high-ticket item that's solving his bleeding neck problem, the perception from the customer is my problem is so unique to me and I need personalized care. I need personalized triage to fix this thing, whether or not it's a migraine or the fact that I'm getting audited by the IRS. I need someone to come in and like hold my hand and solve this, which that's great. That's what will allow them to spend the $5,000-$10,000. But you mentioned something before. You mentioned like group coaching is very effective because it's one person teaching 5, 10, 20 people. Obviously, that hours of the coaches, consultants, service providers' time is now worth exponentially more because they can do it in this group coaching session, which allows them to scale. So there's two different ideas here. There's two different points of view. On one end, you have the customer who wants to spend $5,000, $10,000 for personalized care. On the other end, the service provider wants to scale and bring 20 people onto a call at once. How do you reconcile these two ideas so that you can build a business around it? Because even if you do $5,000 an hour, there's still a point where that doesn't scale. You only have so many hours in a day, and we're all optimizing for freedom. So you do need to have this group coaching environment to really get a significant return on these types of, a significant return on your expertise, but that runs conflict to what the people are trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I'll address this in two ways. One is contextualizing the value. And second is understanding, like, a lot of times we're not even aware of what we're not aware of. So a lot of people think that one-on-one is better because they're going to get more personalized attention. But the example I like to give is, like, if I had a magic button that I could press on your forehead and it would get you to the outcome you want, or we could have a 1-hour conversation once a week over the next couple of weeks to eventually get you there, which one would you prefer? And most people would say the magic button. It's like, cool, well, I don't have that magical power, but what it tells me is you're more interested in the outcome than how we get you there. It's like, okay. So is there any, and now again, if you have a track record and know what you're doing, and it's like, well, is there any reason to believe that with our proven process, you would not be able to get where you want to go with this type of setup? So part of that is recontextualizing the value. And if someone is still like hell-bent on, I'm a special snowflake, then you can certainly add office hours into a group type of program. So let's say you have your group coaching and it's like 1 to 10, 1 to 20, whatever it is. You can still offer office hours. What office hours are, like, let's say you take a 2-hour time block on a Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. You chunk it down into 20-minute time slots and you give people the option to book in on those specific times. So now it's on your terms, not just some random 1-hour conversation here and there. And I did this when I started, and I realized that all these one-on-one conversations were the same conversations I was having in our group calls. I'm like, I don't need to have these conversations anymore. And the other component to this is that it's not just like the leverage that you get as the coach or the business owner. More importantly, it's the leverage that is created by having this community of people who support each other. And what you'll find, and this is what we have found, we actually have clients from around the world, and they organize meetups in their local towns. Like, hey, who's in Vancouver? Who's in Boulder? And they'll get together in these co-working spaces and have these meetups. And I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, people are starving for community. And so there's this whole piece that a lot of people don't even recognize until they're in it. And they're like, this is probably the most valuable piece. Like, they'll come for the content or the system, but they'll stay for the community. So that's the first thing in terms of recontextualizing the value. The second way, just from a positioning perspective, is if you want to position your group as more interesting, more valuable, or as the more ideal thing for someone to purchase, just price your one-on-one out of the universe. So for me, I'm like, if someone wants to work with me one-on-one, it's $160,000 for 6 months. You get one call a month, and you have to be doing $1 million or more already.
Yeah.
But why would you do that when you would get more access to me and up to 40 coaching calls a week with my entire team of world-class experts for pennies on the dollar?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need this. Just do this instead. It's like, well, okay, so now I've price anchored this. I'm just trying to push people away from even considering that. And now this seems like a much better, not just price point, but there's more value. There's actually more personalized support. There's more of this over here. And so that's one of the things I strongly recommend people consider if they're wanting to minimize their one-on-one, is just price it at a level where if someone gave you that money, be like, shit, cool, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll do it. But
yeah,
I think that's really smart. As you know, we spoke about, like, sort of what this is exactly how somebody can sort of scale this high ticket offer. You speak about systems, you speak about automation, you speak about building out these processes that allow you to scale it even further. What would be some advice as somebody who set this up, now they want to sort of take it to the next level? You mentioned, like, you have coaches that come in that are not you. Where are the highest leverage points that somebody can scale this kind of business?
So number one is skill. There's no replacement for skill. Because if you don't skill up, you will be forced to hire people prematurely, and that will eventually put your business in a very tough situation. So what this looks like is, I don't want to do sales calls, so I'm going to hire someone else to do that. Okay, cool. So you're making $10,000 a month. You're going to hire a sales rep who's going to sell your $2,000 program. Number one, there's no margin for them to have commission on. And let's just even say you charge more and they come in and you haven't done this enough. So now you can't even coach them. And you've got someone taking the most important piece of your business, which is acquisition, off your plates. And you're like, cool, I don't have to do that. Well, guess what's going to happen? They're going to suck on the phone. They're going to tank your business. And this has actually happened to a few of our clients because they decided not to take our advice. They're like, I don't want to do sales calls. Like, shit, I almost bankrupted my business. And now they're taking it back on. So number one is you have to build the skill. Like, there is no replacement. I think one of the biggest problems is a lot of people, they're trying to delegate everything. They're not even delegating, they're abdicating it. They're like, I don't want to do marketing. I'm going to hire an agency. Cool. So you're going to pay 5, 10, 15, 20,000 a month. And then let's just say, what happens when that relationship ends? You're left with your pants down and you have no skill. So that's not a good position to be in. Or you could learn how to be a better communicator, right? Which is I think the number one skill for a business owner or CEO to have. And that can translate into your emails, into your audios, your videos, your messaging on your Facebook ads, whatever it is. And eventually when you want to hire someone, at least you can see, like, you'll know what good looks like and you can manage and coach them. On the sales front, I don't want to do sales calls forever, but I was doing 5 to 6 calls a day when I first started this company like 7 years ago. But my vision was, I'm going to crank this out over the next couple months. I'm going to build examples of what success looks like. Once I've built up the margin, then I'll go find 1 or 2 people to support me and build out from there, as opposed to saying, I don't want to do this, you do it. And then, like, you're screwed. So the number one thing is to understand you have to build the skills, and the skills will stay with you forever. Like, you don't know, like, you can lose your business, but you'll never lose your skills.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And the skills they'll change as your business grows. So it's going to be like sales and marketing related skills initially, then it's going to be leadership skills over time. That's the first thing. And then I think, looking at just that alone can help you get to more than $1 million just by skilling up around the messaging, the sales. And then over time, the next skill is going to be, how do we take those skills that we've built and now how do we implant that into other people that can then do the work for you? So that becomes more of a leadership and managerial skill, which is now transferring. So it's not just coaching clients, but it's coaching your team to coach your clients and then building all that up. So it's just, new skills as you go throughout the process, but that's the most important mindset to have in this whole process. It's not about passive income. It's not about, I just want to coach my clients. I'm going to delegate everything else. You got to learn the skills. You got to sweep the floors, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Your business will be much, much stronger for that.
So what we do here is, like, we have like a high ticket solopreneur business. You're saying that this can get to, without even adding new people into the mix, this can already turn into $1 million business, a 7-figure business.
Yeah.
Just by you.
So just to clarify this, so our clients, again, in the neighborhood of like a $2,000 to $5,000 price point, our clients will typically get to about $30K per month by themselves.
Okay.
From there, have an assistant, build it out a little bit more. Yeah.
But not a significant amount of infrastructure to scale this to a 7-figure business. So when you can build these systems, you built the funnel, you built the systems, maybe you have a VA, you're still doing a lot of the sales calls yourself, you have a super high margin business that's doing over 7 figures. And then if people want to scale it more, that's when you start to bring in sales leadership, or you teach over, because you've already been doing the sales to over $1 million. So that's when you can start to bring in somebody who you can teach to sell your product or service, but you now have a little bit of budget to pay for premium talent too. So they're not going to screw everything up. I think people delegate a little bit too soon. I do think that people delegate a little bit too soon, and then once you build the systems and frameworks and you start to hire after 7 figures, then you can scale this to unlimited. There's really no, and yeah.
Yeah. Like the ceiling is there's no ceiling. Like, there's just like wherever you want to take this, and just understand, like, the bigger you want to go, there's going to be more complications, right? Like, it's fine, but you can figure that stuff out as you grow and as you build skills and as you have, like, as you build the right team around you over time. So, all of it is figure outable for sure.
What would be the biggest mistake that people make when trying to transition from service provider into solopreneur?
I think the biggest one is kind of just touching on what I just mentioned, is they still want to just do the delivery. I just want to talk with clients and patients. It's like, great. Well, that's not going to happen if no one knows you exist. So you have to understand, you have to wear the hat of marketer, promoter, however you want to label that. And you're going to have to do that for a moment. And it's also the highest value use of your time. Like if you sell a $5,000 package and you speak to 3 people for an hour each and one of them says yes, there's nothing else in your business that has a higher effective hourly rate than doing that. So you're better off getting support on delivery first. You keep doing sales calls because you're going to sell your thing better than anyone else. And then you just take a huge amount of load off your calendar on the back end because you've hired a coach or a client success manager to help own client success. And then over time, the last thing that in this type of business model we get off your plate is the actual sales calls, because it's still the most effective use of your time. And, but yeah, like we have to move from I'm just the practitioner, the technician, to the actual owner of like, how do I own lead gen? How do I take in acquisition? Do that for a moment, and then you can expand the team over time from there.
So we basically given like a business masterclass for a service provider, again, not agnostic of industry, on how to take what they're doing right now when they're just doing deliverables and delivery to their client and find a way to turn it into a real business. I know that people will probably want to go down a rabbit hole. I know that you have a lot of content online. Where should people go to connect with you? Website, social, all that?
First of all, thanks for having me on the show. It's been a really great conversation, Scott. I guess the 2 easiest places, number one is if you want to just devour our content, you can just go to my YouTube channel. So it's at Healthpreneur, and you'll see all of our stuff on there around, business growth, marketing, mindset, sales, the whole bit. If you want to connect with me a bit more personally, you can just hit me up on Instagram, at Healthpreneur. Just say you saw me on the show. We'll hook you up with some cool stuff to help your business. And yeah, those are the 2 best places.
Is there anything that I should have asked you, some last words of wisdom or insight for people that they're sort of going through this journey and trying to build a business that you think would be useful?
It's always hard to answer that question, but I'd say just like as a parting thought is lengthen your time horizon. Like big runways allow for bigger aircraft to land on them. So if you have a very big runway, you can create something pretty substantial. If you have a very short-term focus, you're going to have a limitation of what you can do with your business. And I understand there's always the balance of like, I need to make money today, but also a lot of short-term decisions can lead to things that don't necessarily do good things for our reputation. And I think part of the reason I've been in business for 20 years is, to the best of my ability, I've taken a longer term approach. Like with our current company, Healthpreneur, we want this to be around beyond my life. So that's a very long-term vision, and that supports a lot of, I think, better decisions. So to the best of your ability, like just think as long-term into the future. When we say something hasn't worked, like by when? Like it hasn't worked ... yet, right? So lengthen your time horizon, and that's probably my parting thought on that.
Amazing. All right. This is the last question that I ask everybody. You've had a great career. You've gone through multiple seasons in your life. If you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self one thing about life, about health, about business, whatever it is, what would that thing be?
Hire a mentor sooner, and specifically hire a mentor sooner. Like pay to play, because it changes the game. I waited way too long to do it. It's the single best. It buys you speed. It buys you time. Single best thing ever.